Hello guys, I am back with another episode. There is a message that I want to share with you guys, and this message was forwarded to me by one of our admins. If you have any story that you want to share with us, do not hesitate. Even if you want to share your story with us in Portuguese, we have one of our admins that can assist us with that translation. The message that you'll be listening to, it comes from a message that was forwarded to me by one of our admins. It is a translation of a message that we received. This confession was translated from Tsonga to English by our admin. The translation reads like this. Hello, Brother Nashi, how are you? Please post for me. I am a man from Tete in Mozambique. I have been working for a white man in Johannesburg. I came to Joburg, this was in the year 1993, and I was staying in Alex. Those who do not know Alex, let me tell you about Alex. This is an informal settlement that is close to Senton. It's where most of the workforce comes from. A lot of people who cannot afford the expensive rent in Senton live in Alex and work in Senton. This place is well known for rats and a whole lot of crime. So I got a job in Senton, and getting a job is not very difficult. All that you have to do is to go and stand to this other robot with your tools box, and people will come and look for the ones that they will be needing. I was a handyman. There was nothing that I could not do. I was called the jack of all trades. If you wanted an electrician, I'll be your electrician. If you want a guy who would come and build your house for a cheap price, I was going to be your builder. There was nothing that I could not do. The reason why I was like this, it was because when I arrived in South Africa, I started working in the farms. I was working for this white Afrikaner man. He taught me everything that I know. When I left his farm, I was quite a useful handyman. And that is when I met this other boss of mine. He trusted me so much. I would go with my boss to his different sites. He trusted me so much. He was in the construction business. That is how I met my other colleagues. Then we would always look for our side hustles during the weekends so that we could add on the income. You know that when it was Friday, we would do this so that over the weekend we can have enough money to drink. We didn't want to use our salary money for the weekend drinking and things like that. We just wanted our salaries to be like that. That is why we used to do all of these side hustles during the weekends. So on every weekend, we would go back to that intersection and get the side hustles. On this particular day, we were chosen. It was me and my other two Zimbabwean friends to go and assist a man who was busy renovating his house, and he wanted us to dig up the ground because he wanted to build his swimming pool. I don't even want to mention the church where he was attending, but it is quite a popular church that is there in South Africa. That man was from Pomona in the East Rand, and he was African, and he had some trucks. The place that he had there in Pomona, the stand were very big. He would park all of his trucks there. The man then showed us the place where he wanted his swimming pool to be. He told us to dig the foundation because he wanted to remove it all together. He warned us that if we should come across anything, we should not open or take what does not belong to us. We didn't have a TLB, so we had to dig up manually with the tools that he had given us. He gave us each and everyone a pick and a shovel, and we started working. As we were digging, I felt that there was something that seemed like steel. Even the way that it sounded, there was something that was underneath, but not very deep. At the place where we were digging, this thing sounded like it was still. I started using a shovel so that I won't damage this thing. As we were removing that thing, one of my friends actually joked, and he said that he once heard of a man who was working in the farms, and as that man was busy plowing the fields with a tractor, as he was busy plowing in the fields, the tractor suddenly got stuck. And when he saw that the tractor was stuck, he got out of the tractor to see what was jamming the blades. He saw that the place where the tractor was stuck, he had dug up a hole. And when he looked and when he dug a couple of centimeters down, he came across something that looked like a small coffin. Took out that small container. When he opened it, he saw that inside there were some ashes that were inside a glass bottle. Then there were a lot of gold coins. That man, he was from Mozambique. When he came across that container that was shaped like a coffin, and when he saw that inside there were a lot of gold coins, he quickly rushed to his boss to show his boss everything that he had seen, thinking that his boss was going to give him some of those gold coins that he had dug up in the fields. But unfortunately, on the day that they were supposed to get paid, they used to get paid on the fortnight. That is when he saw two police vans rushing into that farm. And since they didn't have any papers, they all ran away. And when he tried to come back to that farm, his boss then told him that he had been fired. And if he keeps on coming back to his farm, he was going to pull out his gun on him. His boss told him to get into the bakkie. And from that day onwards, he was never seen around those farms again. So as we were busy digging up that trunk, the thought of instant riches was now on our minds. We finally took out that trunk from the hole that we had dug, and all those things that we were told by the owner of the house that if we were to come across anything that didn't belong to us, we were not supposed to touch it. We were just to place it aside. All those instructions were long forgotten. This was on a Sunday, and the man had gone out with his wife and kids since they were busy renovating their house. We managed to take it out of the ground and we continued to dig. After we had hidden it, we were still thinking on what we were supposed to do with this thing that we had found. We didn't know what was inside that metal trunk. Then there was this other guy whom I was working with. He was called Simba. He decided that he wanted to see what was inside that trunk. I objected and told them that we should remember what the boss had told us. They didn't listen to me. Then they opened the trunk. The way that they opened the trunk is that this other guy, I am now forgetting his name. Simba is the only one that I still remember his name. He went and he climbed on top of the stop nonsense so that he can see if that man was returning back home. And he said that if he was going to make a signal to Simba, then Simba should just stop trying to open that steel trunk. Simba used the spade to open up the trunk. After he had opened that trunk, I saw him smile and jump with joy, only to realize that inside there was a lot of money. I stopped whatever I was doing and I ran to witness this wonder. That is when they opened it further. Underneath that pile of money, there was a black plastic bag. You know those plastic bags that they give you when you buy tomatoes? We opened that small plastic bag, thinking that inside that small black plastic bag, there was more riches that were waiting for us. But when we opened it, Simba threw that black plastic bag onto the ground because inside there was a rotting head of a baboon and it was dripping with blood as if it had been buried there recently. It was still fresh, even though it had signs of already going bad. The trunk was very old and rusty. Now they had compromised our job, so we had to leave. They gave me my own share, but they didn't share the profits fairly. They said that since I had resisted to open up that trunk that we had dug up, so they could not give me the fair share. I was old and they were still young. I didn't want to fight with them. After they had given me my fair share, it was a lot of money, my brother. I came back home. I came to Maputo. I knew what this was, and my friends, they said that you fear too much. We drove off and we left the trunk and the swimming pool unfinished. Because we had met on the robot, the man never knew where to find us. But deep down inside, I knew that something was wrong. Because from the very first day when I was sleeping in my house before I had traveled back home, I had a dream. There was a man who was chasing us, but this man, we could not see him. We could only hear his footsteps as he was chasing us. But as he was chasing us, before we could cross this other river, I saw that Simba had fallen down and the man was standing on top of him and he was busy stabbing him. This is what happened, Brother Nashi. In 2010, when I had returned back home, that is when I heard of the news that Simba had been stabbed. And the way that he had been stabbed, it was the same way that I had seen in my own dream. I returned back to South Africa. I worked for a couple of months. I was still staying in Alex. Then I met this other guy. And when I looked at him, I was in a taxi going somewhere. But when I looked at that man, I recognized that his face was really familiar. And one day, I met that same man. He was walking in town. And when I looked at him, he was busy sniffing glue. That is when I realized that this man, who was now a madman, it was one of those young men that I had gone with to that piece job when we were digging up that swimming pool. Brother Nashi, whenever I think about all of these things, fear just overtakes me. Dear listeners, right there was a message that we received via our email address. Then one of our admins had to give us a translation. Strange things do happen in this world. I'll be back with another episode.